Kia ora, welcome to Central News for Thursday the 10th of April. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller. 3 pools at Hamilton City Council's Waterworld facility will be temporarily out of action during Easter weekend. Matthew Bayliss, Council's Swimming and Recreation Manager, says Waterworld's 25-metre, 50-metre and diving pools will all be out of action on Easter Saturday, the 19th of April, as they have a range of vital mechanical and electrical work planned. And the most effective and efficient way it can all be completed is through a temporary closure during a long weekend. Regular lane swimmers are advised to visit Gallagher Aquatic Centre on Easter Saturday if wanting to swim, and the 3 pools will be available to customers again on Easter Sunday morning. The Life Unlimited Breakfast Award nominations close today, and these awards will be presented to a person or organisation who's made a significant contribution to the health, disability and wellness sectors within the Waikato region within the last 12 months. They'll be presented at the Health and Disability Expo at the Waikato Show at Claudelands Events Centre on Saturday morning. Nominations can still be made through the website healthanddisability.org.nz. The Waikato Winter Show, or the Waikato Show as it's now known, is on all this weekend at the Claudelands Events Centre, and it's billed as a Waikato show in the community, for the community and by the community. The 3-day event from this Friday through to Sunday offers a range of expos and activities, and entry remains at $5 per person with under 5s free. The Waikato Show's open Friday till Sunday 10 till 5 with a Friday late night carnival until 10 p.m. Conditions may still be very dry and worse than they were a year ago for some in the North Island, but as predicted by weatherwatch.co.nz last month, the mid-April showers are stepping up and should intensify in the coming days. The surge of showers this Friday and weekend for some North Island areas will again be eastern focused, although this time they should be around the Coromandel, Bay of Plenty areas northwards. And while it may not be widespread, it should hopefully bring some relief to dry parts of the Coromandel, Auckland, Bay of Plenty and hopefully the Waikato as well. To sport now, and the Waikato Bay of Plenty Magic are weary after 6 games on the trot, and coach Julie Fitzgerald believes the bye round has come at the right time for the team to refocus and re-energise. With plenty to work on when the team comes together again next week, Julie's encouraging the group to relax on their weekend off, with some going home to see family before coming back to take on the Northern Mystics in Hamilton on Easter Sunday at Claudelands Events Centre. Taking a look at the marine forecast now, with Raglan easing early on Friday. Expect a variable of 10 knots, high tide 26 minutes past 7 tomorrow morning. Tauranga, a southerly of 20 knots expected, with the high tide at 6 minutes to 4 tomorrow morning. Still to come on Central News, we talk lotto at the checkouts with the Problem Gambling Foundation. Kia ora, welcome back to Central News. A community Facebook campaign, Restore Our Reef, Remove the Rena, is gaining momentum. Hillary met with the man behind it, Pat Spellman, and discussed the technicality of removing the Rena wreck off the reef.
So the big thing, I think, that a lot of people need to understand is money, right? And so the one sort of thing, the one point, I suppose, that I'm emphasising on from a local point of view is that and I've asked this question many times before and I've never been given a straight answer. I've had them in my studio on the show, I've talked to them at different sort of opportunities that I've had, and I said, if I gave you all the money in the world, money wasn't an issue, could you safely remove the Rena from the reef and restore it back to its closest, the closest it can be before you crashed your ship into it, if money wasn't an issue? And they won't answer that question. So quite clearly, the process now is not to remove the Rena, it's to save as much money as possible. You can't differentiate any of the options that they have provided us from the fact that it's going to cost them money. The $350 million that they've spent so far, they keep shoving that down our throats. The fact that there's a $10.5 million bounty on a yes from the resource consent application, so that there suggests that there's money in a yes answer. The fact that they've said it could cost billions and take up to 10 years for it to be removed, when there've been applications and proposals put in saying it could take us close to 9 months to remove the thing. And so all of this information is readily available to those who look hard enough and ask the right questions and ask the right people. But my thing is, it's all about money, and if it's about cash, then remove it. And if you want to pay us to leave it there, give us about $500 million, because that's probably how much it would cost to remove the thing anyway.
The company has said that it is dangerous. I mean, what if salvers die?
Yeah, well, the thing for me, and I don't want to sound like somebody with a black heart, but the people that work in that industry know how dangerous it is. It's dangerous to work in mines, but people take that risk and they're paid accordingly. It's dangerous to drive a tanker full of LPG gas, but the truck drivers take that risk and they're paid accordingly. So these salvers, they know that this is a dangerous job and they're paid accordingly. They're taking that risk because that's their career. So people that I would suggest that anybody who is given the task of this removal process is given a long list of reasons why it is dangerous. That point there. And then the second point is, a lot of the organisations and the lobbyists that are saying leave it there are saying because it'll be great for commercial diving and it'll be great recreational diving thing. If it's too dangerous for salvors to get in there and remove it, I'm suggesting it's too dangerous for the average diver to get in there and use it as a fun place to hang out. And also, what's better than a sunken ship on the reef for a diving recreational spot is a beautiful reef, and we had that in the first place before they crashed their ship there.
What are some of your memories of that reef? What does that mean to you?
I mean, I'm no Maui, but and you couldn't see me in a scuba suit to save myself. But I think my experience of Tauranga Moana is, and the Moana is a special connection to what I would suggest is the most beautiful asset to our city. And so whereas I have never sort of experienced that reef apart from a few trips out there as per a media sort of campaign, my experience of Tauranga Moana in terms of the rena situation is pristine beaches and being able to walk along the beach without getting this toxin on the bottom of majandals and all that sort of stuff. Is what's going to stand the test of time is the emotion and the hurt and the wreckage and the containers on the beaches and the kaumata and kuia crying because they've never seen the state of their land and their moana and their beaches in such ruins. And so whereas I can't say I've been out there and swum with the fishes, I can say I've hung out on the beach, and I'd rather be sitting on the beach with a pretty lady than a container ship.
Then that as long as that wreck remains on that reef, that it will be a constant reminder?
I mean, it's hard to say from a Māori point of view, and I would like to think I've got a mandate to speak on behalf of Māori because I am Māori, definitely, because if it's hurting our land, if it's hurting our moana, which is our sea, it's hurting us. And that's the spiritual and cultural connection that I don't think the salvors insurers and the people in charge of that ship will quite understand, is that it's more than money, and it's more than power, and it's more than politics, it's people. And so from a tangata whenua point of view, as long as that ship is there, it's going to be a constant sort of reminder in the back of our head. And unless you're Māori, you won't understand that. For locals too, that connection is quite, I think, important and quite significant to them. That you don't have to be Māori to be a local, and if you're a local, you've grown up with a pristine beach and a beautiful reef, and you'll know the connection there. For those that think, because it's underwater and it's it's underwater, out of sight, out of mind, I don't think necessarily that's the case. It's already starting to rot, and there's already starting to be quite, the one thing I do want to emphasise is this created the biggest environmental disaster in the history of our country. This created the biggest environmental disaster in the history of New Zealand. So I think that's the ultimate rebuttal to any question, is that, okay, that's fine, but this created the biggest environmental disaster ever. There is no comeback to that.
Where to from here then?
I think the biggest thing for the Restore Our Reef and Remove the Rena campaign is that there needs to be, we need to be able to utilise the numbers that have supported that page, and so the obvious next step would be a petition, and we're talking to we're getting some legal advice on how we can put the best petition together, and it'd be a waste of time us starting one of those e-petitions really if we get the question wrong, or we don't understand the logistics behind that. That's a really important document. So once we've we've got the right advice and we know exactly where to from here, we'll launch that petition and we can move forward from there. I think we need to come together and utilise the power in numbers, and at the moment there's 1,500 people on this one page and a collective of other pages, and if we put them all together we've got a couple thousand people saying no deal, and if we go and ask the right people around the community, I'm sure that number will grow.
For more details, go to facebook.com, remove and restore. Still to come on Central News, we find out about children's vision and how it can affect their behaviour in class. That's next. Kia ora, welcome back to Central News. One of New Zealand's most experienced and respected behavioural optometrists is warning that many of our nation's children may exhibit behavioural issues due to a lack of visual skills. Hilary spoke with Keith Miller to find out more.
Welcome to the show, Keith. So how common are visual problems? Is it more common in children?
I guess visual problems are across the whole spectrum of ages. But children, we often see visual problems because they haven't learnt to use their eyes skillfully yet. So when you're learning to read, there's a number of skills that you need: pointing your eyes, coordinating, tracking, focusing. And as you learn those, you become more skillful at reading. Adults can have issues with vision and problems. Those that learn new sports will also have to learn new eye skills, and a behavioural optometrist can test those skills and help you to develop better, more useful skills. But a lot of the studies do show that the children arriving at school, up to 1 in 5 children, can be not ready with their skills to learn to read. So it's quite common amongst the primary school children.
How simple is testing? Can we test for visual problems?
I think it's relatively easy for parents or teachers to have a quick look at how the child is using their eyes. Simple things like being able to track, follow left and right and around, follow in close, back out again, and just asking the child when they're having difficulty, what are you seeing? Is the print clear? Is it fuzzy and funny? Does it make your eyes hurt? Those sorts of questions. The child will often answer yes, and they don't know any different, so they won't tell you without being asked.
Can we train them, our eyes then? We definitely can train them to make them better?
Yes, when we're born the two eyes do operate independently, they learn to work together. So those skills of using your two eyes are learned. With training we can learn to make them more efficient, better stamina, use them efficiently. The other area is obviously in becoming better than average. Sports people can train their visual system to be much better at using their eyes.
So is that simple hand-ball-eye coordination that we talk about?
Absolutely. Yes, we're not looking at the eye itself in these situations, we're looking at the skill of actually using the eye.
Now, reading, writing, working on computers, a lot of us do that as adults. Can we start to develop visual problems as an adult?
Absolutely. We find that the eyes, if they're not skillful, if they're having difficulty with focusing, tracking and pointing eyes, if we start using them in a much more demanding manner, we're going to start getting symptoms. We're going to get sore eyes, we're going to get headaches, the print can blur, we lose attention, lose concentration, want to go to sleep. Those sorts of things are quite common. So you get many people who change jobs into a more stressful, more near-demanding occupation. They can suddenly start having symptoms.
And what should they do? Should they be taking those micro breaks and looking up? Is that one of the key things to do?
Absolutely. Visual hygiene, being in the correct distance, taking breaks, frequent breaks, looking up, looking in the distance. Our visual system is designed for moving, looking far and close, not being locked down up close. 3,000 years ago, if you sat down and got engrossed in a book, you probably got eaten. So those that the visual system is designed to be moving around far close, and when you're using it in a different manner, it can often start to complain.
Very interesting. I've definitely learned something. Thank you very much, Keith.
You're welcome.
You can find out more at youreyes.co.nz. Tauranga Hospital celebrated its 100-year birthday on the 6th of March. And when it first opened in 1914, it was just a little cottage on Cameron Road with a live-in staff of 4, a cow for milk supply and a horse for staff transport. Hilary recently spoke with BOP DHB Chief Executive Officer Phil Carmish.
Sure. Originally, 1914, we started with a facility of about 250 square metres, size of an average suburban house. There was room for 4 men and 2 women in the wards, but they did have a cow, a horse and a saddle, and an acre of ground to grow their own vegetables. So that really was the start of Tauranga Hospital here on this site in Gate Pa in Tauranga.
How many changes and different buildings have there been over those 100 years?
Not a lot of change in those early years. By about 1921, they started to think about a new hospital for the site and converted the old hospital into a nurses' home. But then a lot didn't change until we got into the 1950s, 1960s. Then the population started growing, and in 1964 the first multi-storey building was built on this site. So quite recently, in terms of the hospital, about halfway through its history, the hospital started to expand. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, we started the major expansions of the site here in Tauranga with Project Leo, the creation of the hospital that we see today.
What's Project Leo?
Project Leo was leading edge organisation. Of course, you've got to have an acronym for everything you do. But really it was the total rebuild and redevelopment of Tauranga Hospital. So from that point of view, it meant refurbishing some of existing stock, but predominantly building a brand new hospital on this site, the hospital you see today.
What is the area now, and how many people does the hospital have to cater for?
Well, Tauranga Hospital caters for all the communities in the Bay of Plenty, even though we have another hospital in Whakatane and another health centre in Opotiki. About 220,000 people, give or take, starting from Waihi Beach in the north right through to the tip of East Cape, and includes Kawerau and Edgecumbe. So quite a major geographic area.
And how many beds?
We have about 320 beds here in Tauranga, another 110 in Whakatane. So about 450 across the Bay of Plenty, but predominantly here in Tauranga.
The hospital now has a clinical school.
Yeah, we thought about this about 5 or 6 years ago and decided that what right did we have as an organisation to expect people to want to come and work here if they hadn't done some of their training here? So we decided to set up a clinical school, non-aligned, so we cater for nurses, for doctors, for physiotherapists, and in some levels for administration people as well, so that we're growing our own.
So what are some of the interesting clinical studies that they've done?
Yeah, they do. We've got a big research facility as well here, working in combination with the clinical school, and we also run an innovation program and a big research program. So we also encourage our young doctors as they come through to actually be part of that innovation culture, and hopefully reward them for it by giving them some recognition.
After the break, we hear from Cheryl Smith at the Problem Gambling Foundation. Welcome back to Central News. The Problem Gambling Foundation has lost 3/4 of its $5 million government funding and will be closing its 12 offices around the country, with most of its 63 staff losing their jobs. The foundation has been the key provider of addiction and treatment services for gambling problems for about 20 years and has dealt with 25,000 people in that time. I spoke with Cheryl Smith from the Problem Gambling Foundation in Hamilton and asked what the consequences of the funding cut will be.
Yes, with 77% of our funding cut, it means that we've got offices all over the country, 10 offices and 11 outreach clinics. So 63 staff overall, and there is 11 going to be funded apparently after the 30th of June for Asian Family Services, which is one of our specialist branches of service. So the rest of our services are looking in serious threat of closure from July the 1st.
Problem Gambling Foundation is very targeted and specific in the way you assist people. How does your philosophy and services differ to that of the Salvation Army?
Our mission statement is building healthy communities free from gambling harm. So that's what all of our energy goes into, whether that be working with clients who have got themselves into trouble with problem gambling and anybody who's affected by that. That can be family, friends and others. It's also that we have a public health arm as well that are looking to prevent that harm from occurring in the first place, so that we don't need to be necessarily the treatment at the end of when the problem has occurred already. So that's all the side of things that would go, because I guess the Salvation Army has their addiction treatment focused.
If PGF is no more, how is that going to affect gamblers who require that specific help?
Yeah, we're the largest provider of problem gambling services in Australasia. So with us, if we go, that means that there is less choice again for a person who's struggling and needs some help. They will have one choice for service. And once upon a time there were 3 or 4, especially in the Waikato here, there were 3 or 4 choices. We're down to no choice really if you've got one provider.
And the Problem Gambling Foundation's model is admired by Australia.
That's right. We're seen as leading the world in lots of ways because in New Zealand communities we've recognised the huge harm that comes from problem gambling and that we've been doing something about it. And over the last 2 years in particular, we've had significant cuts in the money that's been lost through non-casino pokie gambling. So we're having some success in those areas.
It's been said that the cut by the Ministry of Health was in retaliation for the Problem Gambling Foundation speaking out against the government. Of course, that has been denied by Peter Dunn. Is the cut political?
I guess what happens effectively is that our voice is silenced. So we've been a focal point for community, for people suffering with gambling harm who maybe feel vulnerable and don't want to speak out publicly, that we've been able to do that on behalf of our communities and also lobbying, local councils too. So that voice is effectively lost.
If you or someone you know needs help with problem gambling, call 0800 664 2621 or go to pgnz.org.nz. Taking a look at the weather for the Waikato now. Firstly, Hamilton, a few showers are predicted with a high of 24 degrees and a low of 12. Paroa, 23 with a few showers. Matamata, 21. Te Awamutu, 24. And Tokoroa, expect a high of 21 degrees with a few showers. Heading to the beautiful Bay of Plenty now with Tauranga expecting a rainy Friday. 23 degrees your high and 16 your low overnight. Te Puke, clouds should increase with rain developing and a high of 21 degrees. That's Central News for Thursday the 10th of April. Make sure you like us on our Facebook page and let us know if there's news or an event in your community. Thanks for joining me. Hilary is back tomorrow. I'm Anne-Marie Case-Miller. Ka kite anō.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.